Resident Evil.
Hello there Internet, and welcome to my review of Resident Evil Revelations 2. I'm your host Drew, and I'm more than excited to tell you more about this wonderful game. I know you're dying to hear me talk about the game's development progress, so let's jump right into that part. While Capcom wanted to stick to the action-oriented route with the game's main series, Resident Evil Revelation 2 should be more fan-oriented and relish in the series' signature spookiness and survival horror mechanic. Fan-oriented, you say? Who are the main games for then? Anyways, Revelations 2 saw its release in late February 2015 in a weekly episodic format. Overall, Capcom managed to sell over 2.3 million units, and the game got mostly favorable reviews, with critics praising the game's story and co-op mechanic. The game did get some minus points for graphical issues and repetitive gameplay. But what is Resident Evil Revelations 2 about? Why don't we find out ourselves? Resident Evil Revelation 2's story starts with a little party at the headquarters of TerraSafe. What is TerraSafe? It's a bioterrorism prevention agency.
Because tear doesn't have to end with a wrist.
Alright, where can I sign myself in? We now get to meet some of the characters in the game. Our longtime friend Claire Redfield, who's now working for TerraSafe, there's her boss Neil Fisher, and the second main character of Claire's campaign, Moira Burton, Barry Burton's daughter. But it seems like Moira doesn't like her old man very much.
Fucking Barry. Every time I ask him anything, he pushes back. I wouldn't even be here if I listened to—
The party is crashed by masked assailants, and our heroes are knocked out and kidnapped. The game starts properly, with Claire waking up in a prison cell. That's familiar. Oh look, Claire even got a neat new bracelet. We managed to find and free Moira, and now it's time to take a little look around. Seems like they got a great interior decorator for this place. Not only do we find a knife for Claire and a flashlight for Moira, but also are greeted by a jump scare. And even that's not all, we also run into one of our TerraSafe co-workers. Serves her right, that's what you get for stealing my pudding out of the office fridge. We now have to make our way through this detention block, and the game introduces us to its main mechanic. We can immediately switch between Claire and Moira and utilize the specific abilities to progress further. Claire is more of the combat type, since Moira doesn't do guns, as she almost killed her sister Polly with a gun when she was a kid. Bashing heads in with crowbars is fine though. Moira can also use said crowbar to open doors and locked boxes. Oh, and let's not forget the flashlight. Not only can Moira blind enemies with it, she can also point out hidden items. Anyhow, we have to go through the prison's basement and barely escape being turned into a Claire sandwich.
Oh my god, are you okay?
Yeah, I was almost a Claire sandwich.
Oh, does Barry tell everyone that story?
That's a great reference right there. Speaking of it, one of my favorite parts of this game is the chemistry and dialogue between Claire and Moira.
I swear to god I'm gonna survive the fuck out of this!
We eventually make it out of the prison, and it's now time to introduce you to the big bad guy of this game.
Said the poor lost soul as she lamented her fate.
Ugh, again with these stupid bracelets.
Who are you? I want answers.
I am the Overseer.
Or should I say, big bad girl in this case? Our heroes reach a radio tower, and while Moira is sending a desperate SOS, Claire finds out that we are on an island. The Code Veronica flashbacks really intensify here. Normally, Claire's campaign would end here in episode 1, but for continuity's sake, let's continue with her campaign before we head over to the other main character duo. Claire's second episode starts with her TerraSafe co-workers, Neil, Gabe and Pedro, who are being chased through some woods by these guys. Neil decides to stay back to buy them some time, and Gabe and Pedro seek shelter in a ruined village. Claire and Moira suddenly show up, and the mood lightens a bit. Oh man, I can't wait for all the character development these guys will go through. The Overseer decides to spoil the fun as she's contacting us through our neat new bracelets, telling us that she infected us with a new virus, the T-Phobos virus. Regardless, things start to look up as Gabe found an old helicopter we can use to escape the island. The only catch is that we need some fuel and a battery to fix it. This stuff isn't too hard to come by, but we run into some of the island's spooky locals. Oh great, a chainsaw.
Pedro!
Don't scare me like that, Claire.
I scared you? You are the one making horror movie sounds. Screw you! Everything seems hunky-dory until the Overseer sends more monsters along our way. Adding to that, she reveals that the T-Phobos virus is activated by fear. Naturally, Pedro starts to freak after that and turns into Roydy the Builder. Great, that's exactly what I needed. A power drill wielding psychopath. We are saved by our boss Neil and make a run for it to shake off Pedro. Totally not suspicious, Neil decides to stay back after a while and Claire and Moira continue their trek through a monster-infested town. On their way, they run into this little girl.
You must be so scared. I know I am. My name's Moira. See? We're like sisters. Everything's okay now. What's your friend's name? Lottie.
Oh crap, Moira's kinda good with kids. Little Natalia is now following us on our journey. We fight this big fire-wielding dude and end up at this tower. Gabe suddenly shows up in the fixed chopper, but the Overseer doesn't like that very much, taking control over the chopper, causing Gabe to have a little oopsie. Natalia is taken away in the chaos, and the dynamic duo decide to make their way into the tower, assuming that it's the Overseer's hideout. What comes next is pretty cool in my opinion. We have to make our way through an old meatpacking factory.
Of course this factory had to be a fucked up factory.
This factory is of course filled with deadly traps and shitloads of enemies. And now it's time to introduce you to this night's special guest, the endlessly overdone I'm hiding in a toilet stall jumpscare. Thanks for dropping by, mate. Going further through a butchery, we eventually end up in the island's sewer system, where we run into this nice old man. Some fighting later, we finally made it into the tower, and now it's time for the first big twist in the game. Our boss Neil is actually working with the Overseer, providing her with test subjects for her experiments. But why would he do that? Neil used to work for our old friend Lansdale, that bad guy from the first Revelations game, and wanted to justify the FPC's and TerraSafe's existence with another big terror attack. The Overseer promised him a sample of Ouroboros to use for just that. Oh wow, the Ouroboros. Haven't heard that in a while. But that's not the only twist. Turns out that the Overseer is actually Alex Wesker, Albert Wesker's sister. Bum bum bum. Wesker has her own plan though. A mysterious sickness is slowly killing her. And now she uses the T-Phobos virus to find the perfect vessel to transform her conscious in. Yeah, I know it sounds stupid, and it is, but this is a Resident Evil game. What did you expect? For whatever reason, her new body has to be able to withstand fear, and it turns out that the little girl, Natalia, fits Wesker's needs perfectly. In typical Wesker fashion, Alex betrays Neil and infects him with the Ouroboros. After figuring out that Neil was responsible for the kidnapping, Claire and Moira have to deal with him. They easily take him down, but psych, he was just playing that and Moira has to make a difficult decision. Either let Claire die or use her gun to kill Neil, overcoming her childhood trauma of shooting her sister Polly. Claire's campaign comes to an end as we witness Wesker doing some shady shit to Natalia and our heroes reaching her technodrome to confront her. Instead of standing up for her crimes, Wesker decides to take the easy way out. As it's tradition in Resident Evil games, the tower we're in is now collapsing and we make our daring escape. Unfortunately, Moira has a little oopsie and Claire is forced to make her escape alone. We see that Claire somehow survived all this as she's brought to an emergency room, accompanied by Mr. Chill Sandwich himself, Barry. Now this is where Barry's story kicks in, but there is a little extra episode tying the two separate campaigns together. Let's take a look at that one first. The extra episode Little Miss sees Natalia's awakening 6 months later with no memory of the events we saw in the Claire campaign. And this episode starts off strong.
Hiya, Natalia! I'm Lottie. Nice to meet ya.
Oh, but I am you. Now, tell me why you're so upset.
What? In case you couldn't tell, this episode focuses on Natalia and her search for her missing teddy Lottie. Since Natalia can't fight and instantly faints when she's spotted by an enemy, this episode has you do some sneaking. But Natalia isn't alone entirely. Dark Natalia is able to sense enemies while being invisible to them in return. The best part of this episode is easily the postcards left by Lottie.
Dear Natalia, I'm near the ocean now. Along the way, I saw lots of dead bodies. It was awful. Maybe I'll drown myself.
The ending of this extra episode sees Natalia arriving at one of the island's beaches and reuniting with Lottie.
Lottie.
Gosh-a-rooney, you little bitch!
Okay, this is easily my favorite quote now. Natalia's episode ends with a boat arriving at the beach and we learn that Barry is coming to the island. And this is where the second campaign kicks in. Barry is traveling to the island, not believing that Moira is dead. Upon arriving, he runs into Natalia, and the good guy he is, he decides to take her with him to keep her safe. Oh, let me tell you, I'm really excited about finally being able to play as Barry. Let's just ignore Resident Evil Gaiden. Just like in Claire's campaign, we are able to immediately switch between the two main characters. While Barry is obviously the more battle-hardened combat type, Natalia has now control over her enemy sensing abilities and is now able to point out hidden enemies and items to Barry. So Team Sandwich now makes its way through the same prison as Claire and Moira, and after a spooky detour through the woods, they arrive at an old sawmill. We learn that the monsters on the island went through a little mutation, turning them into almost indestructible enemies, leaving them with only a small weak spot. At least Natalia can point out said weak spots to us. We get to wreck some shit, and as we're taking a short rest at the radio tower, Natalia explains that she knew Moira and that she died. Hang on, you can't know that. You weren't even there to see that. But Barry doesn't give up hope, and we continue our way to Wesker's tower. Someone's watching us. I wonder who that could be. I appreciate that we can go through the same areas as we did with Claire and Moira and see how things changed in the last 6 months, but to be honest, those areas were a lot spookier the first time around. We even get to see the nice old Russian dude again. He's a little bit tired though. We also get to finally put down Roydy the Builder and take away his drill. Upon arriving at Wesker's tower, pretty nice place, we learn that Alex is still alive and went through a little makeover. She wants to kill Natalia and tells Barry that she killed his daughter. We have to escape Wesker's monsters and Barry is ready to prepare a good old revenge sandwich.
I'll kill you later.
We play around with a crane, make our way through a gas-filled mine and even manage to find Lottie again. The final part of Barry's campaign has us arriving at a spooky underground mansion. Here come the Code Veronica flashbacks again. We confront Wesker and she powers herself up with some Ouroboros. Our heroes have no problem in dealing with her, but psych, she was just pretending and is now trying to kill Natalia before she awakens as Alex. Wait, didn't you want her to become you? This is as weird as it is confusing. Everything seems hopeless, until Moira suddenly shows up to save the day. How did she survive? Claire now shows up too, saving Moira and Natalia, leaving us with her and Barry taking care of Alex. A fierce battle ensues, and in true Resident Evil tradition, Wesker is taken out with a tasty rocket sandwich. Our heroes escape, and the end credit scene sees Claire on her way to visit the Burtons. We see that Barry and his daughters are doing fine, and they even took in Natalia to take care of her.
A cage went in search of a bird, but now the bird is gone. The bird has changed.
No idea what that is about. I guess Wesker managed to awaken Natalia after all. I don't know. And that's Resident Evil Revelations 2. No, wait, there is more. We still have to answer one question. How did Moira survive? We get that answer in the extra episode, The Struggle. We learn that the old Russian guy we just saw a glimpse of rescued Moira and took care of her in the 6 months between the two main campaigns. This episode deals with Moira's fight for survival, and we have to do such fun things as scavenge for supplies and hunt for food.
Yum, yum, yum.
Well, thanks for scaring my appetite away.
Moira also helps Evgeny, the old guy, in finding his daughter Irina, tracking her to an old quarry. Irina is already dead though, leaving an already sick Evgeny heartbroken. We even get to see how the old man died. The episode ends with Moira arriving at Wesker's tower to save Barry and Natalia. Now that's all of Resident Evil Revelations 2. I did enjoy the episodic structure of this game, giving it a more theatrical feel. The gameplay is alright, I especially like the co-op mechanic, but saying that, I have to agree with some of the critics here. The gameplay itself can become repetitive really fast. Each episode has you play a part of the Claire and Barry campaign, telling you how the first influenced the other one. You pretty much always go through the same areas as Barry, as you did with Claire, giving away a lot of the atmosphere on the second go. At first it's nice to revisit those places, but it gets old pretty fast. The game does motivate you to look around though, as it offers collectible medallions, which can be collected to unlock nice figurines and new costumes for your characters. Cute. The Saw-esque storyline is alright, at least it can't be seen as scary and spoopy, but the big twists in the game are glaringly obvious and movie cliché. You could say that the dialogue is cheesy and hokey.
Oversee this, bitch.
But to me, that's a big plus, as it adds a lot of charm to the game and its characters. Finally, we see a return to the original game's cheese factor. And that's really it. That was all I could say about Resident Evil Revelations 2. We are almost done with our series on the Resident Evil franchise. I wonder what's up next. Oh, Resident Evil 7. That's going to be a wild ride. Until then, thank you so much for watching. This is Roo signing off. Bye bye.